Dear Diary, I'm over 40, never been in a relationship serious enough to live together, and while I've been proposed to a few times, never been tempted to marry any of them. My singleton to some can be considered extreme because I also have no children nor pets. I don't even own a goldfish. That is how single I am. But here's the thing. Despite these shocking points, I'm not lonely. My life is full and rich and layered. Now I know for many the idea of being single and alone over 40 is unimaginable, and I respect this. There are a few pros and cons, however, I guess. In the same way that love and hate can be considered two sides of the same coin, the pros and cons of being single over 40 and alone, not lonely, could be seen as closely joined. For me, the cons can lead to many things, just as the pros can encourage you to experience many things. As I go through this list of the pros and cons that I have found of being single, alone, but not lonely over 40, I hope you can join me in this discovery and this journey I'm having. Let's start with the first thing that always comes up when you think about being single, and that's companionship. And yes, this is a pros and cons list for each item I'm talking about. The thing with companionship is that we all want somebody next to us. We all want a presence, somebody we can bounce ideas off, somebody we can have a conversation with. And not having that sometimes can be very demoralizing and can really drive you to feel a sense of isolation from those around you. Companionship is something that we all need in our life, be it with friends, with families, with a special loved partner. And being single, as I am, to the extent that I don't even have a goldfish, is something that does pop up once in a while. That sense of, I guess you could call, isolation from the world around you. You know, you don't really have anybody to do certain things with, and that can lead to loneliness. On the pro side, however, not having this quote-unquote companionship means I get mental and physical space. It gives me the room to breathe and make decisions without the thought of somebody else, somebody's feelings or somebody's actions or somebody's financial status. I give myself liberty to live freely by not having this companionship idea next to me. The next pros and cons of being single, alone, but not lonely is money. And yes, I'm going to start with the cons as usual. The biggest con about being single, alone, and not lonely about money is you carry all the financial responsibility. There is nobody to share it with. Your financial worries are your financial worries. Your income is the only income. If you spend foolishly 1 month, guess what? You are going to have to deal with it next month. You don't have the opportunity to say you're going out of a job because you really only have one income to rely on, and all of that is tied to you and you alone. The pros, on the other hand, is that you get to also decide how and where you spend your money. You don't have to make a choice between, I don't know, this person's car and your new handbag because, well, if you decide you want to buy the handbag and not eat for the next month, it only affects you. The financial obligations doesn't impact somebody else, and that gives you a certain financial freedom that is different from being in a relationship with two incomes, because your money is your money. It's not our money, it's your money. The next item on the list that comes up when people talk about, as I am, single, alone, not lonely, oh my God, you guys are going to get sick and tired of me repeating those words over and over again, is decision making and decision making really. And being single often means that, as I've mentioned before, all the decisions are yours, all the choices, all the rights and wrongs are yours. And that can be incredibly overwhelming, to be the only person having to make the big decisions in your life, having to make the big decisions about healthcare, about mortgage, about bills, about holiday planning, about any number of things that, in truth, if you were in a relationship, you'd share with somebody. Again, back to the first point of companionship, you'd have someone to bounce ideas off. You'd feel secure because you feel somebody has your back in the decision-making process. Now, let me just be honest and say, not everybody has this luxury. Not everybody has the sort of life or partner where they can have the luxury of having somebody behind them. But if you have a good partner and a good relationship, those decisions are shared. That saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. Well, when you're single, the problem is your problem. The pros of the decision part, or the decision-making part, is, again, I think, as I've said numerous times before, you are free to make the decisions by yourself. You are free to make choices that other people cannot make by yourself. The holiday planning decision that you might potentially make with somebody else, and they might interfere on, and they can say, no, you cannot do this. You don't have that issue. You have the luxury of deciding tomorrow to get on a plane and go to Italy, go to Spain, go to I don't know, Bulgaria, wherever you choose to go to. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of deciding if you're going to take an interest-only mortgage or a capital interest-only mortgage. The world is your lobster that I honestly don't see any con with when you are, single, alone, but not lonely. And that is quiet. Oh my God. This for me is one of the biggest pros of not being in a romantic relationship. As an introverted extrovert, I am noisy on the outside when I'm out in the world, but quiet inside my house. The lack of noise made by other people in my home is liberating. The opportunity to think complex and frivolous thoughts in my home without any compunction is the best feeling ever. If I want noise, I can turn it on. And if I want silence, this is also an option. Having said all this, I will also be very honest with you and say that loneliness still does occur in my life. In recent times, I can think of this happening twice that I can consciously remember. And both times after dissemination was due to my refusal to make a decision about something. So being in the limbo of indecision, not having someone to talk to about it properly, and also having that sense of shame that I couldn't make the decision, had challenges for me. With that said, once I made the decision, I felt empowered and could focus on moving forward. I've often found for me, and again, this is me, loneliness is driven by my fear of tomorrow, anxiety about the past, and really on what I'm doing in the present instance. This is why, dear diary, is good in helping me, be present. Now, I cannot say that what I say is true for everybody in combating loneliness. Everybody deals with this in different ways. But I will say that these are the things that I have had help me in my quest to combat loneliness. The first is friends and family. As an introverted extrovert and a social butterfly when need be, I find that obviously being apart from people are helpful, but being with people that I care about and I trust, it makes a big difference in my sense of isolation. My family and my very close friends are people that I trust and that I speak to quite frequently. And because of that, I know that when things get really bad, when it gets really difficult, I can reach out to them. So I just turned the page. One of the biggest things that I'd always encourage anybody who is single and alone, regardless of what age you are, is to reach out and have good friends. You don't need to have a lot of friends, but have a good number of friends. The next thing that helps me in living my life fully, in this sense, is my hobbies. And I guess throughout this video you've seen a few of them. I have a number of hobbies. I love crocheting, I love cooking, I love reading, I love writing, I love watching TV, I love podcasting. I love browsing in shops. The list is endless. And I also love speaking to my friends. And because I have all of these hobbies, my internal life is quite full, and my external life is also filled with all the ideas and all the things I do to express this thing that I enjoy. My life is filled with the things I enjoy, and I rarely even leave my house because I'm enjoying my mortgage way too much. So I'd say hobbies. I mean, hobbies you like, not hobbies you're forced to, are very important. But more importantly, encouraging yourself to try new things can also be very helpful in combating loneliness. The other thing I have found is being okay with being alone. I know I had to say that quietly because not everybody is, and not every person's personality works great with being alone. But my personality, I think, actually thrives on being alone. I recently had someone stay with me, someone very close and very dear, stay with me for 2 weeks, and the stress of catering to them and hearing their noises was overwhelming at times. There was a great deal of love, but now if your personality it was incredibly overwhelming at times, having and to you hear enjoy the noises. Peace of being alone, and the peace that gives you. I think there's something worthy in sinking into that idea that it isn't a bad thing to be alone. It isn't wrong to be alone, regardless of what age you are. And while sometimes the world will tell you that being alone at your age is a problem, or doing things your way would mean less people want you in their life, I think the one thing I can tell you is I would rather live a life that fulfills me alone than live a life that brings me down based on other people's idea of how they think my life should be. I'm just watching myself dancing wildly, and I gotta say I look like an idiot. Anyway, guys, that's it for me for today. It's been a joy talking to you about my life, being single, alone, but not lonely in my 40s. And you know something, guys? I hope you've had as much fun going through this as I have, because it's taught me a lot more about myself than I gave myself credit for.